name is Aditya, and I will be talking about overcoming adversity. So before I start, we all have one thing in common, and that's at some point in our lives, we will go through some adverse situation that we're put in. And no matter what, whether it be the loss of a loved one, financial instability, we all go through the same cycle of how we process adversity. And according to Merriam-Webster, adversity is a difficult or unlucky situation that one is put in, and whether that be maltreatment, domestic violence, or social issues. And after extensive research, I've found that overcoming adversity lies between three factors, those being psychological factors, sociocultural factors, and economical factors. And let's move on to the psychological portion. So our brain regulates emotion for our body, and there are three main parts which regulate the emotion for our brain. And that's the amygdala, the hippocampus, and the insula. All of these have three main different functions. The amygdala first regulates our emotions, anxiety, happiness, fear, all of that. The hippocampus stores pattern and memory recognition. The insula does a little bit of both, storing patterns and memory as well as our emotions. And according to, and our internal cortex, which is located inside of our hippocampus, and stated by two doctors in 2012, the hippocampus is an extension of the temporal part of the cerebral cortex, and the cerebral cortex regulates our emotions, learning, and how we think on a day-to-day basis. And the internal cortex is located inside of the hippocampus, which regulates the patterns and encoding of the memory. So next up, I have a quote from Professor Eamon Nagori, UK Trauma Council in 2020, which shows that a research study he conducted showing that children who experience trauma and think about it day to day on more and more, they are more likely to be diagnosed with something called overgeneral memory. And that's when their memory fades day by day, leaving the child's ability to be put in a difficult situation at loss. So once they're put in challenging situations, whether it be social or financial or anything, they don't know how to navigate their way through. And the same professor stated that when they're put through these traumatic experiences, that their brain helps them adapt and cope due to the abuse and neglect they faced earlier in their childhood with the adversity. And there are many other factors which play a role in overcoming adversity, but we can definitely see that there is a psychological basis for overcoming adversity. And some of the other factors are domestic violence, discrimination, as well as prejudice, and these all fall under the bigger bracket of sociocultural adversity. And two experts in global migration and their demographics stated that roughly 8 in 10 people said they've personally experienced discrimination because of their faith or their ethnicity. And other people say that they feel as if they can't get ahead. And this research was also conducted by the same two experts. And now these cover the discrimination and the prejudice portion of the sociocultural aspect of it. Now we want to move more on to the domestic violence. In 1939, the Ampco massacre in April of 1939, killing over 500 people and injuring 30 people in India, really brought them back to their cultural roots, making them want to go back to their Indian food and their cultural religious traditions, also known as puja. And as well as that, there are economic relations which play a big part in how we function as a society now. And in a research study done by Christina Nova stated that about 1 in 5 young children that live in a family have struggled due to their housing income, yearly income. And she also stated that the adversities that they face due to these income problems usually shrink just because of the income. And next up, I have a chart that has 8 bars, and the biggest bar talks about how people were struggling due to their family income and their low income, and how they couldn't be provided a shelter just based solely on their yearly income from their families, which led to more adverse situations. Up to 20% of people face that. So, having covered all these topics, I came up with 2 solutions. My first being therapy. And so therapy, there's 2 portions of it. When you're talking it out with a therapist, a trusted one, or even a loved one, you have a feeling that they're willing to listen, which makes you feel better about yourself. And it just helps in general as a person, helps you better yourself. And next up, we have sports, or just anything you love in general. Being able to take your mind off of that adverse situation that you were put in can really help one distract themselves from their past trauma. Now, there are some limitations to my solution, and first being that you may not feel comfortable sharing your feelings with someone that you don't know, like a therapist, for example. You don't know them, you're going through something for the first time. You don't know how they're going to react. And the second one is for sports and anything you love. They can cause an unbalance in your life due to the fact that you're focusing too much on them and not the past traumas that you were put against. And third one being that it's not affordable for everyone. Not everyone can afford a therapist, which is why it depends on the person and the situation that you were put in. And my second solution was religious customs. So my solution was that children who are put in foster homes, they should be able to meditate or pray at least once a day to clear their mind and regain consciousness in the right state of mind. And again, more limitations. So first being the detachment of society. You may feel detached from society and may not be aware of your surroundings. Second being, it forces you to go hand in hand with past trauma you faced, like any trauma you faced earlier in your life or even in the present. And second being, it tentatively removes stress. There's no concrete basis that meditating will relieve stress for future purposes. Thank you.
All right, so we have two questions for you. Number one, what information did you need that you were not able to find or locate? How did you go about trying to find that information?
So, I wanted more information on the futuristic effects, and all the stuff that I found was solely hypothetical. It didn't have a concrete basis of it being true. And I explored many different government websites and college sites where they conducted strictly research based on what I was looking for.
Okay. Lastly, what additional questions emerged from your research? Why are these questions important?
So one question that emerged from my research was the medical and health perspective of it, and that was, what are the suicide rates of people who can't deal with their past traumas or adversity that they were put through? And these are important due to the fact that we want to know that everyone handles situations in different ways, and we want to know the different aspects that they can take on bettering themselves in the future.